you'll see the recording and how it's getting started. Okay, and our recording has begun. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. And okay. Oh, let me go back. There we go. Hello, Brian. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Sharon.
Okay. All right, here we go. Present. Oh. Try that again. Come on, computer. You can do it. Okay, we won't do it that way then. We'll just show it like this. Okay, so today our meeting is about reading strategies for parents. And we thought this was fitting because getting kids to read can be really tough. So we want to try to arm you with some strategies for when you are reading with your child. So I just kind of want to outline some expectations for scheduled reading at home is kind of what we're calling it. So we like to think that there can be 3 designated reading times. You have a family reading time. And this could look like where you have the whole family together, you're just enjoying a book. Could be taking turns reading the book. We actually have built a handout for you that gives some more ideas of how much family reading time can look like. One of the main things that I'll say about family reading is that during that time, that should really be structured around being a fun, safe time that you have together. That doesn't need to be a time where we're getting our children to sound out a word or we're asking really rigorous comprehension questions. So that's really just supposed to be a fun time. And then the other time is independent reading. So this would be when your child or your children choose different times during the day and they are just reading by themselves and using strategies, which we're going to talk about in a few slides, to solve words or figure out unknown words before they ask you. And I'll talk a little bit more about independent reading when we get there. The next scheduled reading time would be working with your child on reading. So I don't necessarily want to say teaching your child how to read because that might be a little daunting to think about, but just when you are sitting with them and you are trying to help them work through a challenging book. And I think that all of these times need to be stated to your child so they have an understanding of what time it is. So even just being so blatant to say, okay, now it's family reading time. Now you're going to do independent reading. And now I'm going to help you. We're going to work together. The reason there's some stars next to working with your child on reading is because that's what our focus is going to be. Okay, so let's talk about prompting strategies. So one of the major things that we feel like you can do when you are sitting with your child and reading with them and helping them with a book is talking about spelling patterns. And this isn't necessarily can they spell a word. This is can they recognize word parts of words and break it apart. We use the term chunk. If you chunk a word up and be able to use those different parts, put it together to make a whole word. So I'm going to click on this link that we have here to show you a document that we made that has some of the spelling patterns on it. Now, mind you, this does not have every spelling pattern that is taught in first grade. It has most of the ones that you're going to be seeing with a lot of frequency. So on this side over here is what the pattern is. So for example, a silent E at the end of a word, such as the word flame. And the letters that are highlighted, what they show is that in this case, it's the E that's making that A make the long A sound. So we tried to highlight what the spelling pattern is, just to give you an idea of common spelling patterns that your child might see. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. Now, another prompting strategy. And when I say prompting, I wasn't clear about that. This is just, oh, I hear someone trying to get in. Let me pop back. Prompting just means that you are giving them some support. You're saying, okay, why don't you look for, do you see any digraphs in there? Do you see any SHs, or do you see any blends? Do you see a silent E? Just saying things like that. And if I go back to the font, you have that here where you have those terms. They are used to hearing those digraphs, silent E, a long A, long vowel, terms like that. Another prompting strategy is ask them, what do you see in the illustration or in the photographs that can help you figure out an unknown word? So that's going to be, I know it seems like that would be a strategy that they might use when they're younger, but really, I mean, as long as the book has pictures or photographs, they can continue to use this strategy. The next prompting strategy is context. So telling your child, you know, that they can read ahead to figure out a word that they don't know. And then after they read ahead, then to reread what the entire page or the entire sentence. And in doing that, they're getting the rest of the context to help them figure out what that word, that unknown word might mean. Now, kind of going along with that, asking them the question, does it make sense? So if they're reading a sentence and they have a word that starts with a B and they say banana, but the story isn't about bananas, you can say, you know, you've got the first letter of that word, but does banana make sense? And then does that word look like banana? And then you can say the term, you know, make it match. Make that word match what you're saying. So if it doesn't look like that word, it's probably not that word. So these are just some strategies, some prompting strategies that you can use that are pretty basic that all of our students are familiar with and can do, no matter what level they're at. Okay, move on. So again, just spelling patterns. We already touched on this in the last slide, but I just wanted to just remind you that, you know, use them how you want to. They're really more for you to look at and to kind of educate yourself on what your child should know or was taught in first grade. Because there are spelling patterns that we know as adults that we might think, well, they should be able to sound that out, but they really couldn't because they haven't been taught that yet. So that's just a quick reminder. Okay, and I said I was going to talk a little bit more about this. So for when they're doing independent reading, this could look a lot of different ways. Students that are, or children that are the age of first graders, you could hear them read out loud, very loud. You could hear them whisper read to themselves, or you might not hear them read at all. So it's kind of a wide variety of what you might hear when they're reading independently. It doesn't mean they have to be completely silent. They're still reading out loud. That means that they still need to hear themselves read in order for them to figure out words and to be able to comprehend the story. We're saying go ahead and tell them to use these 3 steps before you ask, meaning 3 steps before they ask you or bother you. So the 3 steps are to look for spelling patterns, to look at pictures to figure out unknown words, and to read ahead and then reread. And we have a couple of things for you that you could print out if you have a printer, and you could show them, maybe put it in their room or wherever their independent reading space is. So we have 2 posters here, and we tried to make them kid-friendly. So, you know, look for spelling patterns. This gives them an example of how to do that, and they've definitely seen examples like this before. Number 2, look at the pictures to help them figure out unknown words. So they've got a little example here. Read ahead and then reread the page. So highlighted here the word that they don't know, read ahead, and then go back and reread. This slide right here, it just has less words on it. So if your child is more into just seeing pictures and things like that, this might be a better one, but it's the same steps. This last one is just a little bookmark and that you can use, and we have put this in your parent packet as well. And it's just kind of a nice reminder that they can slip into their book that you can talk about with them in their fix-it-up strategies. So earlier I mentioned chunking up a word, so looking for parts that you know, whether it's a whole other word like you see here in starting, you see the word art, or it's just finding word parts like the blend st. And then down here it says, I can reread to fix it up. Does it look right? Does it sound right? Does it make sense? And a lot of the same things that I was just talking to you about. So this is just something you can print out, give to your child for them to stick in their book and as a reminder for them. All right. We're going to skip this slide. We'll come back to this a little bit later. So Ms. Nisha, I will go ahead and continue clicking on the slides, but I am going to stop talking. So you can go.
Sure. Well, thank you, Nisha. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at one. It's called Fountas Pinnell, our reading program, but they're questions that are intended to help you, to help the understanding of your child increase. And so the goal is to ask your children questions before, during, and after reading stories to facilitate their comprehension. And often children can read at a higher level, but have difficulty understanding the content in the higher level. And therefore, we have included the types of questions from our reading program. And also, these are the types of questions that teachers use throughout all the grades during their reading instruction. Ultimately, we hope that the students will start to ask themselves these types of questions when they are reading independently. And I will demonstrate the types of questions for 3 levels for H, I, and J. However, we have included the slides with the other levels, and you can use the questions across the levels. And there is also a Scholastic online book program that Megan will show you too, that will help you determine a book level. And so we will first go ahead and take a look at types of questions at an H level. And at an H level, we have 2 columns. We have a fiction column and a nonfiction column. And within the story, you can ask yourself, or you can ask your child things like, tell the important things that happen in the story. And if it's nonfiction, talk about the information the writer tells about, if it's peaches or brooms. Beyond and about in a fiction, you can ask questions like, how does, a blank character feel at the end of the story? Why does he or she feel that way? Can you show the page when things change for that character? And also in a nonfiction book, you might ask something like, ask content questions and ask them to refer to a specific page in a book where specific information is. You can ask them to use the table of contents and tell you where certain information is that way. Also, why are blank important to us to learn about? If it's about peaches, why is it important to learn about peaches, or whatever the specific topic is? And also in nonfiction, if it's relevant, you can talk about about how something has helped you and your family, depending on, again, what the topic is. And you can tell about a time when you felt a certain way. You can match the emotions of a character to real life and apply it to real life. This is an example of an H. It might look like a lot of questions, but there's also a bookmark that you can put into a book or just hold with you to help give you ideas of questions to ask. At an I, you're going to notice a lot of similarities between questions during the within or beyond and about. An I level, at a fiction, you can also start with tell important things that happen in the story. And in a nonfiction, tell about important information in the book. And again, we're talking beyond and about characters. Why do you think a character does something or acts in a certain way? And how does the character feel at the end of the story? At later ages, they will be doing character analyses and they'll describe how characters change in a story. So we're kind of giving them those stepping stones for those tools. Look at page, whatever, and how does the writer and the illustrator show you how the character feels? And this also carries over into writing when we're writing about characters. Have you ever wanted something like the character wanted? How was your experience like this story? And so we always ask for connections and relations that children have to the story and to the information. And in a nonfiction, why is it important to notice and understand the problem at the end of the book? Tell how this book makes you think about, or what it makes you think about, and how does the writer show how important peaches are, how important whatever the subject matter is, and can you give an example? And then I'll only go over the J, but all of these levels are available for you to look at. And in a J, again, you're going to notice a lot of similarities. Within, tell about important things that happen in the story, but in a nonfiction, talk about something specific about the information, the subject matter of the book. In the beyond and about, you're going to be talking about characters and how can you tell something about a character? What clues does the writer give you to help you guess, that a character has changed their mind, or that a character might engage in a certain main event? And then a relationship here, a connection. Have you ever, done a certain action like a character? Tell how your experience was like what happens in the book. And in a nonfiction, do you think, something about the subject matter? Do you think that peaches will be sold at a higher price if there are less peaches, or at a lower price? And how would you know that, or how can you tell? What does the writer want you to know about peaches or about brooms? These just happen to be topics that we've been reading about recently. What did you already know about the subject, and what was new to you? And so, again, these are questions to help their comprehension, like we stated earlier, because that often students can read at higher levels, but making inferences is very difficult, even at a third grade level. And often the comprehension doesn't match the reading level. And so we're always trying to parallel those and make them match and improve students, not only their content, but their comprehension, which there's a strong relationship together. When you improve the comprehension, you're going to improve the content. And so these are just steps and strategies to help you do that.
And so something else that we'll add about comprehension questions, we're trying to arm you with a variety of things that you can use. Now, you do not need to ask all of these questions at all. And Miss Nisha, I think, already said that. You do not need to ask all of these questions for a book. You can ask a couple of them. You can kind of pick and choose. And Ms. Nisha went over what we're calling levels H, I, and J. The reason we went over those questions was because typically in first grade, by the end of the year, our expectation is that they're at a level I. A J would be one level above, and H would be one level below. So that's sort of around our expectations. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, if you're interested in trying to match books to your child's level, what you can do to try to find books that do match the level. Something else we're going to say is that we don't have the expectation that you're going to pick up a book or check out a book from the library or order something online and know what the level is. Even though these questions are designated for certain levels, you can really use any of them and make your best judgment on if you think it's too difficult of a question or if it's too easy of a question. So now, before I show you the website that you can go to, which many of you are probably already familiar with, to figure out what level a book might be, I just want to draw your attention to, let's go back up here to this slide, to two different documents that you're going to get inside of an entire packet. So you're not going to have to go looking for them. So this is a complete set of the questions that we use as teachers in the classroom and for tests, from A all the way, the big document, all the way to X. And so you have these available to you, and we wanted to make them available to you because we know many of you have younger kids and older kids, so you can, when you have time, take a look at some of these and you know, see if it's something that you could use. Now, the other resource, and this is a bookmark. You can print it out, fold it in half, stick it in a book, and this has questions for literature and questions for informational text, and they have questions for before reading, during reading, and after reading. Now, something else I want to point out to you here is that this is a lot of questions. I would pick and choose 1 or 2 questions to kind of focus on when you're doing your reading where you're actually working with your child on it. So those are 2 resources for you. Okay, now let's take a look at the website that you can go to research a book that you have or to find books that are at the level you would like for your child. So it's called Scholastic Book Wizard. And I'm just going to briefly show you how to use it. Here at the top is a search bar. You can either type in a book that you have or a book that you would like. And I don't know, let me see. I'll type in Ferdinand. And that came up, so let's click on that and see what pops up. I do love Ferdinand the Bull. And there it is, it's right here, Ferdinand the Bull. It tells me it's guided reading level K. When on this website, if it says guided reading level, that's the one you want to focus on. And so you can search for books that way. Something else you can also do is down here where it says reading level system, you can click on the caret and click on guided reading level. And then you're gonna see a bunch of levels. Now, the reason it's not showing up A to Z is because I was searching for Ferdinand. But if that wasn't the case, then it would show you more levels. Then you just click on the level you want, and it should show you some books. Okay, I'm going to come back to the meeting. Ms. Nisha, I think that was about it. Oh, we also wanted to let you guys know that you're going to have access to Raz Kids until August 1st. And then this is something that the school is looking into keeping beyond that, but at least for now, we have access to it until August 1st. Okay, so let me come back to the meeting. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go ahead and I'll tell you when it stops recording.